Well, this is Reverend Susan Hudson McBride, and I'm here for a mother tongue conversation with Theeda Murphy. And we sat down with you, Theeda, it's been a long time ago, and talked with you about how you came to, into your spiritual journey. And you shared about going to Africa and finding the voices of the ancestors to talk with you. And since that time, you have gone through a very serious illness. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Sure. I was diagnosed with breast cancer about 6 months ago in January. So I've been going through chemotherapy, and I'm at the tail end of that. I'm not quite done yet, but I'm at the tail end of the chemotherapy part. They're going to
Mm-hmm.
go through, I'm going to have surgery on Monday in 3 days to remove what remains of the tumor, and hopefully it won't come back.
Uh,
Yeah.
and during this journey, and which it has been a journey, you've been surrounded by support.
Yes, unexpectedly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did that support group come together? Um, there are people in that group that you've known for quite a while, and some that were um, relatively new in your
Mm-hmm.
life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But we've all been working together on justice issues, and we develop a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Um, going through going through the ups and downs of that, we develop a very close relationship.
Okay.
And I didn't realize how close until I saw how all of y'all have come through for me, and it's been very humbling for me
Mm-hmm.
to see people go out of their way to make sure I'm okay. It's not really something I'm used to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I bring that up is the other relationship I'm thinking about is the one that initially we talked about how you came to this place where you began to relate to something out there that's also in you that spoke to what there's something you needed to find.
Mm-hmm.
And during an illness, how does the relationship with your spiritual practice change? What about your spiritual practice was deepened? What sat by the wayside? How would you describe your experience during this time?
Well, during the worst part of my chemotherapy, when I was really, really having pain, when I was sleeping a lot, but not really dreaming, as you would expect
Mm-hmm.
that I would dream, but I was not really dreaming. I parked myself on this couch here, and my head, my ancestor altar is right behind my head. And even though I was not necessarily dreaming, I felt like I was still under their protection.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have enough energy to continue my daily and weekly rituals. I just didn't have the energy to do it. So I've stopped doing that now. I'm slowly getting back into that, but it wasn't like I didn't have a relationship with my ancestors and my warriors and the orishas that I have received. It's like that relationship changed. It changed. So because I wasn't active, they didn't need to be fed as much because I was in that space of being sick. I was sick. It was okay to be sick and take that time to withdraw and be sick. and be in a place where other people are looking out for me and taking care of me.
Well, the reason this part I think is so important. A lot of people in our culture here in the United States, especially in the South,
Mm-hmm.
if something happens to them and they start having some distance from divinity, whatever they call their God, and they start doubting, why would I have to go through this particular illness? And of course, I'm looking out and thinking, there's a whole bunch of us out here. Some of us are going to get sick. We're going to go through things, but it for some reason, for some folks, it gets very, very personal.
Mm-hmm. And that's not the kind of relationship I have with spirit. I When I ask why, it's not because I think I'm doing something wrong or they're punishing me. That's not the type of relationship I have with them. It's more like asking, well, why now? Especially since so much has gone on since I
Mm-hmm.
got sick and I'm on the sidelines and um, I'm feeling bad that I can't participate. So I asked the question, if all this is happening, why am I being sidelined? And not I don't have an answer to that yet. Maybe part of it was for my protection, but I never felt like I was being punished. I've seen, for one thing, breast cancer runs in my family, and so I
Mm-hmm.
was kind of halfway expecting it because a couple of cousins, my sister, when they hit their 50s, they got diagnosed with breast cancer. So that's part of it. I knew that it was something that could happen to me. Um, but the other thing about my relationship with my spiritual guides and my ancestors is, you know, I've always, as I said before, I've always felt such love and acceptance from them. So it's never about punishment. It's never about I'm not doing anything. As long as they accept my best effort. So my job is to give them my best effort and be the best person that I can be. So as long as I'm doing that, whether I'm feeding them on time or not, um, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether I'm following the rituals to the letter or doing anything. It just doesn't matter as long as I'm
Mm-hmm.
being my best, and that's a big job. That's not a little job. That's a big job, but
Yeah.
that's what they expect from me.
So in our culture here again is one where the gods, whatever people are worshiping here, even if they break away from fundamentalism,
Mm-hmm.
there's still an inclination to see this god as playing gotcha.
Right, right. And once I lost my fear of hell, there was no stopping me. But yeah, those Abrahamic religions, they've done, such a mind fuck.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing, no other way to put it but that. It's such a mind fuck that you think that your deity is just waiting for you to mess up.
Yeah. For someone who is struggling in that way, what would you recommend for them? What would you say that could give them some kind of encouragement? How would you guide their thought?
There are examples of love around us all the time. If we go out in nature, that's the biggest example of love.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are on a planet that No matter what you believe in creation or not, for some reason it was made for us to exist, and we do exist, and we thrive on it. And I don't know. That's an example of love. Um, and that's what you have to tap into. So the people around you who show you love, if you have animals, if you have pets, that's like the purest expression of love that you can get, is having a pet that you keep for years and you have a relationship with that animal. But there are examples of love around us, and that's what we have to tap into, and that helps to combat the idea that this supreme being is out to get you and will destroy you if you do something bad. But that's what you need to do. Whatever touches you in that way, don't close yourself off to it. Roll with that and allow it to touch you, and that will open you up and help you get out of that.
One of the things that I've enjoyed watching, having, the idea of having threads now where people can become a group thread, and it could be a support group.
Mm-hmm.
And watching the thread and the people who have been your team, your family, in going through this process with you, there have been times when it has made all the difference in how I changed my focus on the day.
Mm-hmm.
Because things aren't going great, and I look at this thread and these people who are expressing concern, but also sometimes the love was almost palpable coming out of that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a really important piece for this. Now, at one time, people would have just called and showed up at your door with casseroles, which people did.
people did have people have showed up at my door with food and gifts and checking in on how are you doing, and sometimes that's overwhelming, but man, sometimes that's overwhelming, but it's overwhelming in the best possible way. It's overwhelming in the best possible way. And my family, so many people in my family sent me money when I asked for it.
Mm-hmm.
Cousins that I'm not close to sent me money. And it's just amazing.
Well, one of the things that I've always noticed about how you carry on your life is I don't see you slicing things up into categories.
No.
Your life is a nice blend.
Yes.
And I suspect that's in part either because of your spiritual practice now, or maybe it was that way before and that made your spiritual practice come in to you naturally or more easily.
No, it's something that I grew into. That the idea of having a holistic life. And for years, my job took away from me. I felt like my job was the thing that took me away, because I was doing usually more than 40 hours a week with somebody else's priorities in a system that was limiting.
Yeah.
Because I work in mental health. And that system is very limiting to the things that we need to do for people to help them. Is very limiting. And so, whereas I knew that I was touching people, the kind of help I wanted to give them, I couldn't give them. So my job was like the thing that was taking me away. But now I have a job that flows very nicely with my life. So when people ask me, when are you working, I was like, I'm working all the time. I'm working all the time because what I do flows so evenly into my life, and that was the last piece of having a life that's holistic, because I wanted that. I wanted my life to be holistic like
Yeah.
that.
Well, I think a lot about your life, and it's not so much that you say my life is holistic as it is if somebody observes you, it's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what draws a lot of people to you and makes them curious about, what is this woman's spiritual practice, because you don't get to that place without having something in you that goes to the deep places that other people can't see.
Right, right. And connecting with a traditional religion that goes back hundreds of thousands of years um, helps that too. Because I know that the origins of this religion was in a place where people were not doing the 40-hour capitalist grind. That's just a recent blip. People's lives were holistic before this. So connecting with that really helped, because if I want to emulate my ancestors, that's how they lived. They lived where their work and their lives, there was no separation. They just lived. And that's what I strive to do, to just live.
So, really, one of the big holdups to people finding the practice that they need is the culture that we're living in now. And hopefully, what can happen, I've just noticed in the midst of this pandemic, when everybody had to stop,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in some ways I thought, this is the end. This might be the end of things. And it hasn't been at all.
Well, at least I think people are starting to question, a lot of people who do have the luxury of working at home, are are seeing, they're living that more holistic life because they're at home. So, and the kids have been at home, and everybody's been in the house together 24 hours, nearly 24 hours a day, because you can't really go anywhere. And so, everybody's lives have become more holistic by default. So you have to talk to your kids and your spouse, and you can't leave for 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day and be away from them,
Yeah. And I want to make sure I'm not taking away from what I know for some people are truly hardships. People who have lost their jobs and don't have an income. And here we are again. And it goes back to that capitalist system, and that system where where community and concern for other people is not real enough. It doesn't exist enough to take care of one another. And what I watch, especially an example being in your situation where everybody came together and we were going to take care of Theeda.
Yep. 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 And y'all still are. You still are. And yeah. And people do that. I don't think they take note of it when they do that. But for the people that they care about, they definitely do that. And we need to be more mindful of that. And we need to not make excuses and say, and realize that that's the way it's supposed to be. You are supposed to be able to have those connections with other people, and you're supposed to be able to be free to do that. Not asking for permission to be sick so that you don't have to go to work, asking your boss for permission to be off to go to work.
Yeah.
That's not the way it's supposed to be. That's not the way it's supposed to be, and we accept that as normal.
Mm-hmm.
Asking for permission to be off work so that you can take care of somebody else who's sick, that's not normal.
I noticed a lot of things that I always thought were normal when all of this, when daily life as I had always known it, as all of us had known it, kind of came, it came to a halt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was like, uh, some of these changes actually feel right.
Mm-hmm.
So what were we doing before,
Right, right, right. So I think a lot of people might feel guilty about that because that's what's programmed into us, but that's normal. You don't feel guilty about taking care of yourself or taking care of your family. You should. Then that takes away from your work. Well, that structure is what's wrong,
Mm.
not you.
Yeah. This has been beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's been good because of who you are. Thank you.